Hi everyone, I'm Jackie. Today I will show you how to make kimchi with 2 heads of Napa cabbage. Especially in early winter, Napa cabbage is most delicious, cheap and robust, so you can store it for 3 or 4 months in the refrigerator. That's why so many Korean families make a big amount of Gimjang kimchi in early winter every year. I will call this mini Gimjang kimchi because Gimjang kimchi usually means a large amount of kimchi. I have a small family, so I prefer making a small amount of kimchi with 2 or 3 cabbage to making a large amount of kimchi with 20 or 30 cabbage. During my life, I have learned kimchi making from more than 10 kimchi teachers around me, including my mom. I'll give you a summary of the tips I've collected from them and the methods I put together through trial and error myself. The most important things in kimjang or kimchi making are cabbage and salt. In other words, 90% success if you choose delicious Napa cabbage and salt it well. The first thing to do in kimchi making is salting Napa cabbage. These are Napa cabbage produced in Haenam, which is famous for the good quality of Napa cabbage in Korea. These 2 heads of cabbage weigh around 6 kilograms. First, wash the cabbage with running water. Rather than washing thoroughly, you only need to wash the dirt on the outside. I make salt water to soak the cabbage, and you can use any kind of salt. I prefer using fine salt since it is easily dissolved in water. Whatever kimchi you make, the basic salt-water ratio is same, 1:7. This way you can make your kimchi neither too salty nor too unsalty. In a Gimjang basin, add 2 cups of salt and pour 14 cups of water. If you want to salt the cabbage faster, you can use warm water and increase the salt ratio. Usually, it takes time to salt them, so it is better to invest 2 days in kimchi making with a relaxed mind. Kimchi didn't work well if I was in a hurry. For the first sorting, deeply insert a crisscross cut into the lower part of the cabbage. Then stand it upright and soak it in salt water. At this time, it is better to open the bottom of the cabbage a little so that the salt water soaks in easily. This will allow the salt water to seep into the lower center of the cabbage and soften the tissue. Just set it for 2 hours and do other things. 2 hours later, turn the cabbage over and divide the 2 heads into 4 pieces each. You can cut it all the way with a knife, or you can just tear it with your hands like this. And like this, trim the root side of the cabbage. Remove the remaining part of the outer leaf. There may be dirt in between. Now for the second salting, I'm going to sprinkle salt between the cabbage leaves. In this case, it is better to use sea salt or coarse salt. That way the salt melts slowly and soaks in evenly. Sprinkle coarse salt little by little between the leaves, centering on the lower white part of the outer leaves. The outer leaves are thick and tough, so they aren't salted well, so it has to be salted better. Otherwise, it will make tasteless kimchi later. And these Inner young leaves are sweet and tasty by themselves, that you don't need to salt them too much. When you're done sprinkling the salt, placing them in salt water with the outer side facing down. When you finish salting, let them sit for 2 or 3 hours. You can cover them with something heavy or cover it with plastic like me. In this way, the salt will be absorbed better.
3 hours later.
After another 2 or 3 hours, take out one head of the cabbage and check how much it is salted. The outer leaves are bent well, but the second and third leaves are still a bit stiff.
This is a little bit strong.
Change the position of the cabbage. Now let the bottom cabbage in the lower salt water go upwards and the upper cabbage go downwards. Leave the cabbage as it is here and go to bed. Allow 7 or 8 hours to pass. Check the condition of cabbage the next morning. It's after 7 or 8 hours, or at least 4 hours. You can see the stiff lower part of the thickest leaf is folded completely without breaking. This means that they are salted well. Now, wash the cabbage 3 times in water. If you don't have a large container to wash the whole cabbage at the same time, you can wash it off by taking 3 or 4 heads into a bowl at once. The water doesn't have to be cold. Washing in warm or lukewarm water will wash it better. Wash them 3 times like this and drain them. Kimchi really takes a lot of time and care. When you have finished washing the cabbage, be sure to squeeze it out with your hands. After squeezing like this, more water will come out again. You need to drain them more. Then, take a little bit of cabbage to taste. If the cabbage is salty, then take a little bit of cabbage to taste. If the cabbage is salty, you just need to make the seasoning less salty. And if the cabbage is not salty enough, make the seasoning a little saltier. When I taste the cabbage, it is perfect, I think. Neither very salty nor less salty. And if the cabbage is too large, cut it in half with a knife like this. It's a bit cumbersome to season, but this makes it easier to take out when you later eat kimchi. Put them as it is in one side of the container so that the water drains out. In a small pot, add 3 tablespoons of glutinous rice flour. Pour 1 cup of water and stir it well. Put this on low heat and cook for 5 to 10 minutes while stirring slowly. In a little while, you can see this becoming translucent and stiff. And if you do not have glutinous rice flour, you can use just flour or starch powder. You can also add water to the already cooked rice and blend it. Stir a little more here, and when it boils, turn off the heat and let it cool. Usually, the ratio of glutinous rice flour and water is 1:5, but 1:7 is okay. Please prepare 1 radish. Adding radish adds a cool taste to the kimchi. After washing thoroughly, peel it off with a potato knife, like this.
Potato filling.
Winter radish is so sweet that you can just eat raw radish like eating fruit. Generally, radish tastes different on the bottom and top.
More delicious.
The green part on the top is sweeter, and the white part on the bottom is bittersweet.
Bitter taste.
So I plan to grind the green part on the top and add it to the kimchi seasoning, and slice the remaining white part and use it as kimchi filling.
I will not throw this away.
I'm going to freeze it without throwing away the radish peel and use it to make vegetable stock.
So I will keep them in the fridge.
Divide the peeled radish into 3 large portions. Then slice the 2 pieces of bottom part. But when I slice it, I do not cut it thinly, but deliberately cut it a little thick. If you cut it too thinly, it will become too soft and mushy when kimchi is fermented. On the other hand, if you cut it too thick and large, it will be a little hard to chew, so it is not good for people with weak teeth. In addition to radish, chives, leeks, and mustard can be added together as kimchi stuffing to make it more delicious.
Other vegetables.
I will grind the remaining green part with other ingredients and cut it into small and thin slices. Since the sliced radish is thick, it won't bend if you use it as it is, so it's hard to put it into stuffing. So I put 2 tablespoons of salt on the radish and mix it like this. After 30 minutes, water will come out of the radish and the radish will be soft like this.
Very soft.
At this time, the salt water is removed by squeezing the radish to some extent. But the remaining salt water is not thrown away, and the salted radish juice is used instead of water and salt when making kimchi seasoning. I'm going to make kimchi seasoning while the radish is being salted. These are ginger syrup, garlic, salted shrimp, red pepper, apple, sesame, and onion. I'm going to grind all of them with the radish that I cut earlier. And this is 2 tablespoons of ginger syrup. If you do not have it, just add 1.5 tablespoons of ginger slices and 2 tablespoons of sugar or honey. If you want to add only the essential ingredients, just add garlic and salted shrimp with sugar. Chop the onion thickly, and the garlic is a little bit hard, so chop it 2 or 3 times. Cut the red pepper in larger chunks. This is a chili I bought and frozen last fall. If you add fresh red pepper, it tastes fresher. Apples can be peeled and cut into large pieces. You don't have to peel the apple like me. This is just a habit. You can just peel it off with a potato knife. You can use pears instead of apples. Now, put the green part of the radish, garlic, onion, apple, salted shrimp, ginger syrup, and sesame in one place, and add half cup of fish sauce.
Any kind works.
This fish sauce is made of salted anchovy. If you do not have anchovy sauce, you can add another type of fish sauce. This time, if there is no water, it will not grind well. So I will add about half a cup of salt water from the radish that I saved earlier. This way, I don't have to add extra salt. Now I will add glutinous rice paste to the seasoning. Mix it well with spatula. Then I will add 1½ cups of red pepper powder and mix well. If you like the red and spicy kimchi, add 2 cups of red pepper powder. I'm not good at eating spicy food, so I put 1½ cups. Let it sit there for about 10 minutes.
Chili powder.
Then the dried pepper powder is soaked and turns vivid red.
그러면서 뭐
Now add the squeezed radish to the seasoning and mix well. I will taste it. It feels like it needs a little more sweet taste, so I will add 2 tablespoons of plum syrup and mix it. If you do not have plum syrup, add some sugar and honey. You can add as much plum syrup or sugar as you like. Now the kimchi seasoning is complete. Now in the kimchi making process, 90% is over. You only need to do the final 10%. As you look at the cabbage that was washed and squeezed before, more water came out from them like this in 1 hour. Then throw away this water and squeeze the remaining water from the cabbage once more. All you have to do is season the salted cabbage leaves and put them in a container. Now just apply seasoning evenly to the outer and inner sides of the cabbage. Scoop the seasoning and radish with your hand and sandwich it between the cabbage leaves, like this. Spread the seasoning especially well on the white and thick part of the cabbage. Sometimes I apply it twice to make the seasoning stick better. When you finish seasoning, fold the cabbage in half or wrap the folded cabbage with the outer leaf. This way, the seasoning and stuffing between the cabbage won't fall out and ferment more deliciously. When you have leftover leaves and fillings like this, mix them with the remaining seasoning and put it in the kimchi container. Now put the seasoned kimchi in the container in a nice way. Then scrape off all the remaining broth and pour over it. Press the cabbage firmly with your hands. Now cover the lid and you are all done. Let the kimchi stand at room temperature for 24 hours and refrigerate it. If you prefer the sour taste of fermented kimchi to the taste of fresh kimchi, put some kimchi in a smaller container and let it ferment at room temperature. We usually eat the fresh kimchi with boiled pork belly, but if you do not have meat or don't like it, you can eat it with sweet potatoes like this, or in any way.